Replacement property identification. Let's spend a little time on replacement property identification because it's important. And the reason it's important is this. For those few exchanges that fail, they almost always fail because of deficiencies or discrepancies in the identification of replacement properties. So it's worth a little time to understand identification. First off is this. After the sale of your relinquished or exchanged property, you are required to identify candidate or target replacement property or properties. And the rules regarding your identification require that this identification be made within 45 days of the close of the relinquished property, and it must be in writing. Now, if you have sold more than one asset or property, the 45-day period actually starts when the first asset closes. Now, I mentioned that the identification had to be in writing. Well, this is how that's done. You may make the identification to your qualified intermediary or facilitator or to one of the other parties to the exchange. For instance, your closer, settlement agent, or escrow holder, or the seller of the prospective replacement property. We actually have the capability to identify digitally within our client portal. So if you are on vacation in Europe and your 45th day is coming up, you can log in and identify that way. You can also mail it or fax it, but make sure it is received. One way we ensure that it is received in time is that we provide a receipt. It is also important to remember that once you have made an identification and your 45-day period has elapsed, it cannot be changed. This is why you need to make sure that you can acquire the property or properties that you identify. Now, I mentioned that once the 45 days has expired, your time to identify has expired as well. Here is one caveat. If you are still within the 45-day identification window, it is possible to revoke a previous identification and re-identify. This is helpful in those instances where maybe a property that you had interest in is no longer available, but you still want to have some flexibility in what you purchase. Now, the last thing that you should understand is that your identification can affect the disbursement of your exchange funds in certain situations. Now, these situations, we call them the G6 restrictions, are unusual, but you should be aware of them in any case. And they were established to ensure an exchanger does not have constructive receipt of his funds during the exchange process. For instance, if you do not identify potential replacement property in the 45-day period and indicate that your exchange is not going to be completed, your facilitator is required by law to hold your funds until the 45-day period is over. Your funds will be returned to you upon your request after the 45th day. Otherwise, you must wait until you complete your exchange or until the expiration of the 180-day exchange period before you receive your exchange funds. I will add that the regulations provide an exception to this rule if you are able to show that a material contingency beyond your control exists. And that is identification.